This is OpenAir Live and Local, the music video show that highlights the sounds being created across the state, and we are on location in Colorado Springs. I'm your host, Alisha Sweeney. Colorado has a remarkable music scene that goes well beyond Denver, and for this episode, we get the help of music writer Heather Powell Browne to be our music guide. I'd like to introduce you to her now. Hi, Heather.
Hi, Alisha.
So we have a lot of ground to cover today for the city of Colorado Springs. Heather's been an advocate of the arts scene in Colorado for more than a decade and joins us to curate an evening of exciting acts from the city, as well as tell us what the music scene is like here in Colorado Springs. So let's take a look back. 2005 is when you moved here and you started up your blog, Fuel Friends. What was your impression of the scene back then?
Well, you know, when I started Fuel Friends, I was really looking to connect with music. I had just moved here from the San Francisco Bay Area. And I found I would go up to Denver and Boulder a lot for shows. So I didn't know a lot about the music scene here. It was not as vibrant, I think, as it is now. It might have been, but I didn't know about it. And so when I would go up to Denver and Boulder, I'd go to lots of shows, a couple times a week. And I would find that people would often, when they found out that I was from Colorado Springs, they would kind of pause and then be like, oh, how is that? You know, with a distasteful, like I had just told them I had a terminal disease or something. And so I think it's changed a lot. I started to become curious about what I was missing in Colorado Springs, like where were all the cool shows? And so seeking out what we have here and seeing how the fact that sometimes we do exist a little bit under the radar, or we historically have, I think has allowed music to flourish here in ways that would probably maybe surprise some people in the rest of the state.
So fast forward to 2018, tell me about your impressions of Colorado Springs now. You said you've seen it grow, it's become so vibrant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think that what I see now is an absolutely wonderful town for music. There's a really vibrant, collaborative energy going on in the city. I think that because we do get to fly under the radar a little bit, that there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration and excitement in the music that's being created here. I think that there's an interesting thing, there's a shorter power distance, I think, between the different people that are involved in making music in the Springs, and then the people that have spaces to play it in and funding to fund the arts. And so I think that it's much more common in my experience here than it ever was in California, or that I hear from other cities. If you have an idea for some sort of a collaborative project or a band you want to start, some of the bands playing tonight have played in lots of different, members have played in lots of different bands, but you can call people up, you can figure out a new thing, you can start new funding, find a space to play. There's a lot of do-it-yourself vibe, I think, in Colorado Springs.
I want to get more into that DIY ethos of Colorado Springs, but first, music. Heather has curated what I would call an exceptional lineup of diverse talent from the city, and on deck is Gwen Wolfenbarger, who records as Sea Legs, or Sea Legs. This is an artist I didn't know about until you told me about her. So tell me a little bit more about this artist as we introduce it to our viewers.
So I first met Gwen I work at Colorado College, and she came to talk to me about ways she could study psychoacoustics abroad, the psychology and music interaction, right? So how the brain hears music. And she is creating phenomenal music that is I'm excited that you guys get to see it, transfixing live, that people sit there with their mouths open because she creates these loops of sound that are very glacially paced and grow slowly, but that really have this deep emotional resonance with it. And I feel that is a surprising thing. It's not something that you would often think of a sound like that coming out of Colorado Springs. It's complex, it's layered, it's phenomenal. So I'm excited for you guys to get to see Gwen.
This is a great music discovery. On location at the Tim Gill Center for Public Media, here's Sea Legs. Such a moving performance from Seal Legs. It's the song One Day. This is Open Air Live and Local on the road in Colorado Springs. I'm joined by Heather Powell Browne, our music guide, who's curated this episode to introduce us to some exciting artists making music here. Seal Legs also plays the harp, too.
Yeah, a multi-talented person who, as you saw, I was just blown away by all the layers in that song and the use of different voices. I found myself really thinking about how one person can be so many voices all at once and so many layers and things all at once. And I think that was a performance that really shows the depth and all the different things happening at the same time in her music.
And one part of Gwen's story as Seal Legs is that she uses looping to tell her story, and you were talking about those different personalities. Mm-hmm. She's also a transgender artist, and that's how she can communicate.
Mm-hmm. And I think that is something that she'll talk about as being really in her music, starting from the perspective of working through some of those identity layers, but then extrapolating out to connect with, I think people find a lot to connect to on all levels of her music, regardless of their own personal experience, which is, to me, the sign of a really interesting artist.
I can't wait to see how she continues to grow because, like you said, she's a college student. Mm-hmm. She's just getting started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's wonderful.
As we get to know Colorado Springs and the music community more, this is a beautiful city. It's scenic, has a charming downtown. The base of Pikes Peak is just miles away. Its population, 450,000. It's home to a few colleges, the Air Force, lots of families. So all that said, how does someone who loves music discover what to see in the area?
Well, I think especially lately, I've been so impressed with all of the interesting visible collaborations popping up. Colorado Springs downtown is now classified as a Colorado Creative District. And I think with that, since 2014, we've seen a big growth in the surprising and visible ways that music has popped up in non-traditional venues and art galleries and spaces across, specifically the downtown, but across the city, where you could look something up in the paper, you could see something online, you could see something through the advertising for one of our arts organizations. And so it's finding new music, to me, seems easier than ever, even if they are in non-traditional places. A recent event that I thought was extra cool that happened in Colorado Springs that's a good example of this cross-pollination collaboration that we've been doing lately. There's a local gallery here off a little alley downtown called SPQR, and it hosted a sci-fi exhibit where 10 writers wrote short stories, science fiction short stories. 10 painters painted the story or did a painting related to it. 10 performers read the story and recorded it, and then there was some soundtrack scoring of music from a local musician. And so you could hear all those things together as you looked at the art in the gallery on a First Friday. And it's promoted through, or events like that are promoted across the spectrum of both music happenings, as well as visual arts, as well as the writing, the creative community. So I think that for somebody who's new to town who loves music, it's not that hard to find innovative things that are happening here because of the vibrant creative space that I think is happening in Colorado Springs right now.
So it's so true. There is this huge eclectic scene, and you've curated an eclectic night for us. Who's up next?
Well, so the next person is somebody that listeners around the state may have heard of in the past. So Grant Sabin is the next artist. He is a fixture in Colorado Springs, I think, and across the state. He plays a ton. He's only 26, 27, but he's been playing music since he was, I think, 12 years old. So many listeners and people that listen to the radio or have gone to festivals across the state may have seen him and his Delta blues out and about.
Well, let's see him now. Here's bluesman and Colorado Springs native Grant Sabin on Open Air Live and Local.
I don't know what street I'm on, walking home, baby, wish I could lean on. where we're going, but I know I'm going with you, baby. Walking home, walking home, walking slow in the snow to you, baby. And I don't know if I'm dreaming or walking home, baby, so I can dream on you. And I don't know what's going on, but I know I could never dream you up, baby. Walking home, walking slow in the snow to you, baby. My feet are on the ground and I can't stand it. Gonna lay myself down in the riverbed. Spring water, baby, floods my head. Every time I close my eyes, I can't tell you no lies. So I'll say, I don't know where we're going, but I know I'm going with you, baby. Walking home, walking slow in the snow to you, baby. Walking home, walking slow in the snow to you, baby.
That's Walking Home from Grant Sabin on OpenAir Live and Local, and we are on location in his hometown, Colorado Springs, with our local music guide, Heather Powell Browne. So what an exciting performer. He's been doing this since he was like a teenager, right? His dad was a musician, so he's following in the family footsteps.
One thing I appreciate about Grant is that he's done a lot of learning from old greats. So blues musicians, he's done traveling to the American Southeast, and he's learned about Delta blues and hill country blues, and his dad makes some of his guitars, if not all of his guitars. And so there's really a depth to his sound that it sounds a lot older than I think he is. One of his big breakout performances that's kind of legendary in Colorado Springs is at our Blues Under the Bridge festival down by the train tracks under the Colorado Avenue Bridge, where he was 18, and I think he had just graduated from a local high school here, I can't remember which one, when like 2 weeks before, and he got up there and just blew everybody away who couldn't believe it was this 18-year-old kid playing these songs that sounded much, much older than that.
So that's a perfect example about Colorado Springs, is that you guys are making venues out of places that are unexpected, so you can just throw a great show. Like, isn't there like a laundromat that you guys have had shows at, and you used to throw shows at a chapel?
Yeah, so both of those spaces are connected with Colorado College. So the laundromat is an old space, the old Couture's laundromat. There's now a student music collective there called the B-Side Collective, and it's designed for kind of femme, queer, non-traditional students making music and having a space to do that at Colorado College. There's a stage, there's some great sound, there's murals put up by the students. But we've brought in some musicians that are not students, so collaborating with touring musicians and giving them a chance to play in a very cool space. And then the chapel sessions, I started recording bands in Shove Chapel, which is on the college campus at Colorado College. And that also started from the same thing of well, we have this beautiful space and these bands are coming through to do house concerts, and let's see if we can get them up and start recording a couple songs in the chapel. We've had some really memorable performances over the years. The first session we did was with the Head and the Heart. The first time that the Lumineers ever recorded Ho Hey was in the chapel here. So it's these unexpected, quiet spaces where, you know, a janitor or somebody will walk in and see we're recording and be, you know, I'm sorry. But we have made it work to do some really phenomenal things in unexpected spots throughout town.
So tell me, if I had 5 hours to spend in Colorado Springs, what should I do, or some other music fan?
So I thought a little bit about it. I jotted down kind of my itinerary because there's so many places that, you know, that you could possibly go. I think that we have record stores that often aren't, I don't want to say as picked over, but we've got some cool out of the way places here that crate digging is a lot of fun to go looking through vinyl records. We've got independent records down here, and then there's also the Leach Pit. And, you know, it's a lot of fun. The Leach Pit also has a bunch of vintage stuff. So I think last time I was there, I found some Garbage Pail Kid cards and vintage clothing and stuff, but a great selection of music as well. The owners of that really love music. So I would do crate digging for a little while. If it's Friday, I would go out to one of the First Fridays like we were talking about, if it is a First Friday, because there's all kinds of wonderful things happening, and that's often got great music interlaced throughout it. There's a neat print shop downtown, a letterpress studio called Ladyfingers, and they've been hosting some neat music and poetry or spoken word events in the basement space underneath. The venue, underneath their store, is turning into kind of an informal venue. So I would check and see if anything was going on at Ladyfingers. We've also got our flux capacitor, so DIY space in Old Knights of Columbus Hall that's actually now managed by the Pikes Peak Library District, so it's a really interesting collaboration that you wouldn't expect. Flux Capacitor just got a grant from Meow Wolf in their last cycle of DIY grants. So that's a vibrant DIY music space that if there's anything happening there, it's a wonderful time to pass some time, and it's a beautiful hall as well. And then at the B-Side Collective, the Laundromat, if anything's going on there, there's some neat non-traditional places, record stores, card shops, that it's worth your time to spend a few hours. Great restaurants as well, but that's not music, so we'll leave it at that.
I am going to be keeping busy myself in Colorado Springs. There's so much to do. And I want to get back to something you said. You talked about how collaborative the music scene is here. And the next group that we're going to hear from is one that formed on election night 2016 at a Courtney Barnett concert in Denver. They were all attending it. They were all feeling the things after the performance from Courtney Barnett and the results of the election. So this is a band that has some seasoned performers in it, and they're a new group. Tell me about Spirettes.
So the term supergroup comes to mind when I think about Spirettes. Not only are they each super performers in their own right, but they're in bands around town that have done various kinds of music over the years. And they are formed, out of a powerful moment, but what they make together is really phenomenal to see, I think. So Kate Perdoni is from the band Eris and the Eschaton, who some of your listeners may be familiar with. She moved to Colorado Springs 5 years ago. The other two musicians, Kelly Palmblad and Emily Gould, are both locals from Colorado Springs, and so have played in all different kinds of bands. And so to see them come together and make this new group that's born out of, there's a ferocity and an urgency to the music that they're making, which I really appreciate and I identify with. I think that I see things that I recognize from growing up and loving the music that came out of sort of the mid-90s Riot Grrrl movement, the Breeders and Slater Kinney. I saw Wild Flag a few years ago at South by Southwest, and there's a similar feeling to the melodies that they put together in the harmonies, but also just the rock and the propulsive drive behind their songs. So I think that they're really making some exceptional music together. I'm really glad to see the creative energy that comes from this supergroup. And so I'm excited to bring them to you guys as well.
Well, let's rock out with them now. This is Spirettes with their tune Records on OpenAir Live and Local. That's Spirits, whom I would call a must-get-to-know band out of Colorado Springs here on OpenAir Live and Local. You're right, this is a super group, very reminiscent of the Slater-Kinney side project supergroup Wild Flag. You hit the nail on the head with that. And these girls are doing so much for the music scene. It seems they all work in the arts in the city and are just creating cool things. I can't wait to hear more music from them. This is Heather Powell Browne. She's been our music guide for this episode. We've been hanging out in Colorado Springs at the Tim Gill Center for Public Media. And before we go, Heather, one last question for you. I know the city's growing, you're seeing change. What do you hope for the arts scene here?
I think that we're on a great trajectory from the collaborative efforts that we've put forth in this city. And also I think that funding and recognition for that growth is really important to sustain. So we've seen, as I mentioned, the becoming a Colorado Creative District downtown. We've seen funding come in for that, the Meow Wolf funding. It's allowed musicians to apply for these grants and to have organizations and venues really bring together some exciting stuff. So I think that we're on the right path with that. I've seen multifold growth in a lot of areas where we've got attendances up at all sorts of interesting spaces and galleries around town. So my hope would be that that continues to grow, that we continue to see new generations come up and obtain the funding and reach out to infuse new stuff into the city, into the music scene. We've got a lot of people moving here actually, and so the city itself is growing, which is always good for a vibrant scene. I think another thing is that despite the growth and the vibrancy of our art scene here, we don't see the same kind of stratification between genres and music scenes that you might see in other cities. And that's also exciting to me. That's a sign of a healthy musical and artistic community. So it's neat to see those surprising collaborations happen where there's, like tonight, where we saw many different bands. They all know each other. They all have probably played gigs together. So it's neat to see that the boundaries, even as the city continues to grow and thrive, that I haven't seen those walls come up. And that's exciting because I think that the walls aren't healthy. So it's a good time to be a musician in Colorado Springs.
Thank you so much, Heather, for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
This has been so awesome, and thanks to all the bands for sharing their music with us throughout this half hour. To see and hear more from the bands featured in this episode and an extended conversation with my music guide, as well as interviews with our featured artists, search On the Road over at cpr.org. I'm Alisha Sweeney, and thanks to CPT 12 for their support of the local music scene.